Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Corum here, and I'm joined by Justin Nielsen on this Wednesday. We're going to talk about the action for the major indexes, tech stocks leading today, Justin, and a couple of names that provided some early entries.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and start with one of the biggest techs of them all, Apple.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still want to say Apple Computer, even though they haven't gone by that name for a while. We'll also kind of take a look at some of the software enterprise stocks that are making a little bit of a comeback. And we'll start with Five9 and then go into Datadog.
That we will. First, a look at the NASDAQ here. The tech-heavy index gaining 2% on the day. A really nice gap up there. We had the Dow up 0.8%, the S&P 500 up 1.4%, and the Russell up 0.4% today. So, Justin, some really broad strength today. And we've been talking a lot lately how it's been really impressive to see a ton of stocks continually presenting actionable opportunities in this market.
Yeah, and of course, whenever we have strong days like this, especially when we've already been running for a while,
Right.
the next question is how long can it last? So we are getting a little bit extended from our 50-day moving average line. There's some research that we've done in terms of how extended you are from your 10-day moving average line, and we're not quite there for the NASDAQ yet. But it is interesting that the Russell 2000 was not participating as much. It lagged both the NASDAQ Composite and the S&P 500, as you mentioned. So, it's still some of this rotation that's going a little bit back and forth. Who's going to be the true leaders? A lot of the mining metal ores were getting hit today, even though some of the mining, in terms of gold and silver, were doing okay. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Some of the things that had been doing well, not so strong today. But really, it's this big tech move that we've been seeing. The FANG stocks, a number of them working out okay, and your big leaders that drive the Nasdaq 100, really showing a lot of strength. You don't see many 2% days on the Nasdaq, at least lately, and when you do see them, it's worth paying attention.
Well, we're going to keep an eye out for signs of overheating on the NASDAQ and elsewhere, but let's shift our attention to some stocks underneath the surface. You mentioned Apple had a very strong day today, up about 3.3%. It's been forming, it's kind of this handle pulled back. It's been consolidating for a little while. Now, it did undercut and even close below its 21-day line, but it looks like it really found some nice support not too far beneath that.
Yeah, and you can kind of see how it just kept on testing this level at 126, right around there. So kind of if you draw a straight line right there, or you don't even have to draw the line, your kind of crosshairs really noted it. It really was getting support right around that level. Didn't come down all the way to the 50-day, but a few closes below the 21-day aren't a disaster. And you also, what's interesting, Ali, is you still have your kind of downtrend line from an early entry when it came back above the 50-day moving average line. So one of the ways that you could have been playing this is, kind of buying this with that early entry, riding it up until it got to the highs. And then a lot of times, once you get to those new highs, you almost do expect a handle to form. In fact, I think I mentioned on the show right around that last top around 138.79, how back, 10 or 15 years ago, Bill was playing Apple, and that's what he did. As he rode it up on the way up, he got out of it for a little while, or just scaled back on his position, let it handle out, and then he got back into it. So now you have this early entry as it crosses the downtrend of the handle. It's gotten support at right around the 21-day moving average line, and again, that line in the sand at 126.38 definitely held. So this also makes it so that you can make a tight stop, because when you do these early entries, there is a higher risk of failure. But if you can keep that stop very tight, you kind of know that if it crosses below that area where it was getting support, it's not really meeting your expectations. And so that can be a way to keep the risk down to a very minimal amount.
That's right. Great analysis on how to play Apple here. And let's also take a look at Five9, FIVN, in the enterprise software group. I mean, this stock has had a really nice run going back to the coronavirus rally, and it's formed a couple of bases along the way, some buying opportunities, and presenting another one here today, Justin.
Yeah, so here again, we've got that support right there at the 20-day exponential moving average line. I should mention that we do use the exponential moving average line when we're talking about the 21-day. It just gets a little bit tighter to the price action by using that exponential factor in there. But, you know, here we have a very similar look here. We've crossed a downtrend very strongly, and, you know, as you mentioned, though, this is one that has been running for a while. This doesn't have quite the correction that Apple had. And, you know, those corrections are good. It kind of gives a chance for the base, for the stock to reset a little bit. But as you mentioned, this one is sticking up way out there. So your expectations might have to be lowered a little bit in terms of how much you can get out of this. That's one of the reasons why we put this on Swing Trader, looking for just a quick pop on this, and, you know, in a short time. And if we can get that, we'll be happy and exit, you know, fairly shortly. We do also have earnings season. It's important to kind of mention that. So a lot of these stocks will be having earnings coming up, you know, shortly.
Yeah, it looks like we got about another month or so to go for 5-9. So a great swing trade setup. And also, if you're playing this as a position trade, coming down to that 10-week line, and it's about 7% above that level, we like to say, if you're sizing it off of that 10-week line, that we want to see it within 10% or so, right, Justin?
Right, exactly. And again, this comes down to the risk level. You know, if it's a matter of keeping your risk low, you don't want it to get, you know, beyond 10%. And you know, this one's a little bit tricky. If you go back to the daily, because it did get that support of the 21-day moving average line, you do have that kind of low at 163.71. If it undercut that, you know, this would look a little bit funny. Or even yesterday's low, it would look like, oh, you know what, this break above the downtrend isn't working. So you can keep a very tight stop on this to let you know that it's not working. But if you let it go too much further, then you're going to be looking at that 50-day moving average line. Hey, can I get support there? So just be aware of how much you're willing to risk on this. And this is where position sizing definitely comes in. Kind of pick that dollar amount that you're willing and then to lose, and then you can size your position based on that risk percentage.
And a good point about fine tuning those areas to look at for stops. And last but not least, let's check out Datadog DDOG, moving up about 5% today, Justin. It had a nice strong move here not too long ago, pulled back yet again within this handle. What do you make of the action here?
Well, one of the things that was concerning us a little bit about the handle was it was a little deep, you know, considering that this was kind of a 30% move down in the base, 32%, and then the handle was almost 20% itself. So that is a little bit deep. You know, you usually have kind of a symmetry to these patterns, and this was on the deeper side for one of those handles. But now what we've seen is it got back above the 50-day moving average line, and we've tightened up. So the last few days have really shown tighter action. It was able to kind of come down in a more contained way. And so this was another one that we put onto Swing Trader today as it crossed above that downtrend. So we've almost got like this handle within a handle, and it does set up some multiple entries. So you could be buying it here off of this cross above the downtrend. You could be buying it as it crosses above that mini handle right there, or you could be buying it as it crosses your traditional handle. So a lot of opportunities to either, you know, start the position, but getting that early entry allows you to get some cushion, and you could even do some ads on some of those later entries. If you want to start smaller now and then kind of add along the way, you can actually get a reduced average cost by the time it eventually gets to that traditional buy point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, another reason why we are looking at this, well, it's because look at this track record of strong top line growth, turned profitable within the last year or so. It has a history of making big moves. So we'll have to see where it goes from here. But one thing's for sure, it did provide a really nice setup today. And thanks so much, Justin, for walking us through it.
You got it.
All right, everyone. That is it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. What stocks are going to present actionable buying opportunities tomorrow? We're not sure, but we will be breaking it all down on IBD Live. And if market conditions change. We're not going to predict anything, but we know how to use history to help us react in the best way possible. Justin, I mean, you are one of the seasoned team members of IBD and IBD Live. What are your thoughts as we head into tomorrow with where we are in the market right now?
Well, I think you're going to see that a lot of us are, again, a little bit nervous. And so what we're going to be looking for is any signs of downside or reversals, any signs of trouble as a lot of these stocks get extended. But for as much as, it's starting to get to that extended nature, if we have something similar as what we saw in August, then we could get, kind of a strong move. Some of those strongest moves are at the end. So we don't want to be premature. And that's why we break it down for everyone in real time on IBD Live every day.
That we do. Check out our daily morning live stream, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. We look forward to seeing you there tomorrow morning, and we'll see you right back here after the close.